I'm James Codner, and I approve this podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 3, part 1 of the Right Angle podcast. I'm Ewan Petty,
And I'm Timothy Carasolis.
and today we have a large, interesting topic to talk about.
So today we're going to be talking about the potential government shutdown. This is a very important issue because it will happen this next Tuesday. So this is a potential government shutdown. It's not guaranteed, but we might see the government all shut down in terms of non-essential functions. This is going to be our part 1. Now, part 2 is going to have 2 other topics, but for today we're going to focus on this because we have so much to talk about in such a short amount of time. Now, let's get straight into it.
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing is my faith.
All right, let's get right into this topic. Now, what is a government shutdown? A government shutdown is when Congress fails to pass and the president fails to sign the continuing resolution to fund the federal government's operation or agencies. This is due to the Anti-Deficiency Act, which basically prohibits federal agencies spending money without congressional approval for non-essential functions. Now, Ewan, could you give us a breakdown of the Anti-Deficiency Act, please?
The Anti-Deficiency Act forbids agencies from spending money that Congress has not given them and prevents them from entering into contracts or obligations before Congress has approved funding for them. This is important because it protects Congress's power of the purse and prevents agencies from overspending and then hiding debt.
Of course, this is very important to us because our money goes to, the government, and we do not want them spending money that we can't spend. If money's not there, we can't expect them to go more into debt, which is a whole different problem because we are in debt. It's crazy how we're still spending money, which they're not getting, and this leads to a big problem, which this act is supposed to defend. But let's get into the difference between non-essential functions and essential functions because this only affects non-essential functions. So let's get into the difference between essential and non-essential. Now, it can be broken down like this. Most, if not all, of our national defense is essential to our country, meaning they continue to receive funds during this period of time. Although during the time between the bill not being signed, most federal employees do not work until it is resolved. Now, this is a problem in itself because now people are out of jobs in a sense, although they're going to come back, they're out of jobs right now, and they're waiting for the money to come in. Now, the non-essential portion of funding includes national parks, IRS, customer service, some research grants, some regulatory functions like the IRS, FDA, and EPA. Now, Ewan, could you give us some idea or an explanation of why the IRS, FDA, and EPA, very important functions in my opinion, are included in the non-essential part of this?
The IRS, EPA, and FDA are not funded during a government shutdown because they do not fit the criteria under the Anti-Appropriations Act to be considered essential. Though FDA inspections tied to immediate danger will still happen, the EPA will still respond to chemical and oil spills, and the IRS will still continue to protect government computer systems and process certain refunds.
Yeah, so, in a sense, the non-essential parts of these important functions are still not being, pushed, which it just makes sense. If they're non-essential parts of the IRS, of course they're not going to fund it during this time, especially for the FDA. It's a food association. They're not going to send out people to go inspect food while they're out of money. That's just not smart. But they will do research on good food because they're not going to let us, slide in that sense. But let's get straight to where we are at because of this. So, Speaker McCarthy and former President Biden set a top-line spending standard for the 2024 fiscal year. The amount for the fiscal year was close to $1.59 trillion, originally agreed, but ended up amounting to $1.66 trillion. Now, mind you, this is one fiscal year. Fiscal year basically just stands for a government year, but it's the same thing in that sense of it's a year. It's a year period, and they spent $1.66 trillion. How does this happen? It is insane that we spend this much yearly. It is not possible. What are we funding that gets to that amount? We really do have to look into that, and we have to try and understand how we are spending this much money every single year. Now, mind you, this already fuels our already high debt of $33 trillion. Let me repeat that one more time. $33 trillion. We do not have money to be spending. We are in debt. Where are we getting this money from? We get money from taxpayers. We get money from other functions. But we're $33 trillion in debt. It doesn't make sense. It is truly insane. Now, going down this route of high spending realistically will only continue to feed into our national debt and open the possibility of higher spending in the future. Now, Ewan, please tell us, in 10 years, what is our national debt projected to be at?
According to projections from the Congressional Budget Office, the U.S. national debt is expected to be approximately $52 million by 2035, which is approximately an increase of the current national debt by 57.6%, and it will total about 134.8% of our GDP, or gross domestic production.
Now, when we put it into a percentage, 57% doesn't seem a lot. You can put it into $1 and say, oh, 57% of a dollar is $1.57. But when you put it into the sense of a $33 trillion debt, it kind of does add up. Ewan, what was the number again in trillion?
$52 trillion.
52 trillion. How are we at this point of $52 trillion? It's insane. It's unimaginable that we are going to be $52 trillion in debt. And that is projected going at the rate we are going at. Now, obviously, now that Trump's in office, it's going to change. We're going to see, possibly going down. We might see stabilization of it. Hopefully it stabilizes. I don't assume that it's going to go down because there's so much work to do. We're at a deficit every year. And so I don't assume that it's going to be going down yet. We might see a change depending on who we vote. Our president's in power. Obviously, we had Biden, and it went up 1.66 trillion. So, that was a great vote. I hope everyone's happy with that. And, we're reaping the benefits of that. We're at a $33 trillion debt now. And it's just a big issue in itself. We are at a bad spot, a really bad spot.
Most definitely.
So, while this is a fight in itself, there is also another fight occurring simultaneously due to the same bill. So this bill being passed is causing something else to happen. So conservatives are pushing to attach policy provisions to these bills, which is already raising eyes from the Democrats. Wow, shocker there. Democrats see something that the Republicans are doing, and now they're shocked. Wow, who could have thought that would happen? A few provisions that the conservatives are trying to attach are addressing, one, the border crisis. We have been pushing this for the longest time. How long have we needed to protect the border? We have people coming in. Remember there was a situation in Texas where they were cutting through.
I believe so.
Yeah, they were cutting through fences and they were getting through. And that was a whole situation because people were ready to shoot. That was a very bad situation. People were getting ready to shoot. But think about it. How are we not protecting our border? We've been through this. Trump built the wall, and now we're just going to let people come back in. It doesn't make sense. We can't keep on going back and forth and then deciding, oh, well, maybe we should let them in. Oh, but, push back on some things, and then, some we'll let slide. It doesn't make sense. We can't be on both sides of the spectrum. We can't. We either go full border control or we don't. And, I mean, in a sense, we can't go non-border control because then we just let random people in, and we have big problems there. That's a whole separate issue. Now, this will include defunding the catch and release policies. Now, the catch and release policies are in itself a whole separate issue. This is insane. We cannot catch immigrants, get their information, and tell them, could you please come to court? Would you mind coming to court so we could, send you back possibly? That's insane. Ewan, could you give us some more insight on the catch and release policies? Because we need some insight to what it is.
Basically, from my understanding of what a catch and release policy is, it is basically detain migrants temporarily, collect some basic info, and set a court date for them, and hope they show up.
It's so dumb. It's realistically, think about it like this. If you arrested a criminal and you told him he did an outrageous crime. Now, mind you, this is an extreme. He did an outrageous crime, and you told him, hey, you're free to go, but We're going to hope you come to your court date so we can prosecute you. No, we know you're going to jail. You're going to jail here, but come to the court. And mind you, we're not going to charge you anything. We're not going to hold it against you if you don't come. We're not going to say anything about it, but we're going to ask you, please come to your own court date so we can sentence you. Would you go?
No.
Who in their right mind, other than someone who's actually honest and respectable and doesn't want to go to jail, and someone who's fine with accepting their consequences? Now think about all the people who don't want to accept responsibility. Now think about all the people who won't accept responsibility. What are we doing? It's not smart to do this catch and release policy where we just, come and hopefully you'll go to court because, it's the right thing to do. That's not going to work. It's never worked. Maybe in very specific case scenarios. Another provision they're trying to add is restarting border construction. This is a whole separate issue. And finally, another provision is to strengthen immigration enforcement. Now, these are all coming from the Republican side or conservatives. And so this is going to be, a more conservative values. And that's fair. I mean, a lot of these things are amazing. I mean, we do need a lot of these to go through. And even if it doesn't go through here, through this bill, then hopefully in the future, we can get these through. Because a lot of these are just common sense. We can't put stuff in place and then pull it back. Finally, we have a provision to defund woke policies. This would defund DEI across federal agencies and the military. Now, Ewan, I'm sure you know what DEI is. And could you give us an explanation for that?
DEI is also known as diversity, equity, and inclusion, and some of its policies may include hiring someone based on their sexuality or their race, not because they're the most skilled person, but because management or whoever it is feels like they need a lesbian or whatever other group to be on the work crew. They're maybe not the most qualified person, but they fit the demographic that they wish to hire.
And this is just the most stupid scenario. Who cares who you are? If you're qualified for the job, you're qualified for the job, and we're going to pick you either way. You don't pick based on if someone's the right race. You don't pick if someone's the right gender. You pick based on values. I think of merit-based society, just like Charlie Kirk said, merit-based is the way to go. Because we're not judging people based on their skin. We're not judging people based on how they look. We're judging on how well they perform. And that is honestly one of the best things. Charlie Kirk had a debate with an individual at one of his rallies. And his argument was about basketball. Now, he said, I believe 70% were black in the NBA. And he said, if you added DEI to basketball and you said now 30% of whites have to be at least 50%. Now I'm just going to use this to make it simple. Obviously, there's other races, but we're going to make this simple as if there was just whites and blacks. Now, imagine they said 50% have to be white and 50% have to be black. The quality of the game just wouldn't be the same. As of right now, they pick based on how good a person is. They're not going to pick you if you're a bad player just because they need another white guy on the team. They're going to pick you based on how good you are and if you're going to perform well. This is the complete opposite of DEI. DEI is saying, now we need 50% of black people and we need 50% of white. Now, there might be better black people out there, but we're not going to pick them because we need that DEI. It's insane. It's not a thing that we need. And so this is why they're defunding it. It's very important that we get this through. Even if not through this bill, again, we need to get it through it somewhere else because DEI just shouldn't be a thing. Now, obviously, there are some institutions that have this already, DEI, where they want to hire Mexicans, Latinos, and I've even heard about it where there's some jobs that you have a higher rate of getting because of this, and it's not a thing that should happen. To add on to this, there is one more provision, and that is to address social issues like defunding abortion, related services, and other culturally progressive programs. This is obviously more on the conservative side. I believe that it's pretty self-explanatory. Defunding abortion, that makes sense there, and other culturally progressive programs. That just makes sense there. Finally, bringing all of this up as a whole really makes you think there are many things out there that need to be done, And every moment we spend just on the finance portion of this bill, we miss important time that we could be using to deal with other important issues. Hopefully, we don't get stuck and the government doesn't stop here. Because what could happen is we're stuck in this loop where nothing gets done. The government can't function because we need to finish this one part of funding. And it's a big problem there. Hopefully, we can get this solved as soon as possible. That's our goal here. It doesn't always happen, but we're hoping for a quick and swift resolution. That's the best case scenario. Let's talk about the facts of the government side. So John Thune, as Senate Majority Leader, has two options as of now to break the 60-vote filibuster needed to pass this bill. So he can either A, side with Democrats, making a deal with the Democrat leader, Chuck Schumer, to pass this bill quickly, which is part of the reason McCarthy lost his position. If you don't know, McCarthy was the previous House leader, House of Representatives. He was ousted by 7 Republicans. So 7 Republicans did not agree with him, and they voted him out. Now, obviously, we have the Democrats who wanted him out either way, so they all voted him out, and 7 Republicans didn't agree with him because they didn't vote the whole Republican way in their eyes. And so he was outed. This puts a ton of pressure on John Thune. He sees this, and now he has to be a bit worried that if he doesn't vote completely Republican, that some people might not like him. That's a bit of an issue. And obviously, siding with the Republicans is an issue in its own, because now it's showing that he has no spine. He's going to side with the Democrats just to end this. Which, I mean, in a way, there's goods and bads to it. Obviously, we end this fast, quickly, we resolve it, and we get the government back in order. But now we have no spine, we have no backbone, because we're just giving them what they want. But this would also most likely conclude with removing many of these important provisions Republicans wanted that would have been included. So there are the provisions I mentioned earlier that were going to be provided with this bill. Now, all of that can be changed, altered, or just in some way removed. So yeah, if this deal is materialized, then basically the Republicans can lose a lot of what they wanted. So Ewan, can you give us a bit of an idea of what the Democrats want so that, possibly if they do go down the route A, what could we possibly see the Democrats getting out of this?
So the top 2 Democrat demands basically are a reversal of funding cuts to NPR and other media outlets, and a permanent extension of Affordable Care Act credits.
And this can all just be broken down into they want money. They want more spending. What's going to happen is more money is going to be put into their pockets. They're going to be able to spend money on whatever they want, and it's just not going to be good. You see, we're already in debt, and they're fine with that apparently because they're willing to spend more money. And all this is going to do is build more of a hole for us, and we're going to be in more of an issue. It's a whole different thing that messes us up already more than we already are. And so that's our option A, is he can just side with the Democrats, give them what they want, and we can have more spending. But pass this bill quickly so the government moves. That's an issue. But we do have an option B, which it's honestly the most likely option out of these two, that he continues to side with conservatives and refuse a bipartisan deal to the floor, continuing to push spending cuts and provisions as they were. However, the Democrats would not agree to this. It would cause a government shutdown, but the Democrats are fine because they want money. You see, the Democrats are fine with shutting down the government just to get a little bit more money in their pockets, which, what do we do? And so if we get into an option B and Mr. John Thune does not want to make a resolution with the Democrats, then we're just going to have the government shut down, which it is a very likely possibility. Now, usually in these scenarios, the Senate leader will push their side's opinion if fails due to a lack of votes, and then seeing the lack of progress, they agreed to a bipartisan deal to start the government moving again. Now, Ewan, the Democrats might want to make a deal with the Republicans. And if we do that, who can we expect to see moving alongside with the Republicans to make that deal?
So some of the potential Democrat senators who might vote on a bipartisan bill would include Senator Angus King, Senator Gary Peters, Senator John Fetterman, Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, Senator Maggie Hassan, Senator Dick Durbin, Senator Brian Schatz, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, and Senator Jean Shaheen.
So these are all names we should look out for. These people have the possibility to side with the Republicans and get this deal moved while also getting their deal that they want. And, this goes back to option A, is that he does decide to side with the Democrats in a way. Now, I'm not saying he's going full Democrat, but to get this deal passed, he is giving the Democrats what they want and removing some of the things that he wants, the Republicans want, and getting this passed. Now, this is a whole separate issue. Goes back to option A. Now, option A is going to be our option saying that, we're soft. Option B is going to say we don't want that resolution, and it gets some eyes on us. People will say that we're just causing problems, and people use this. People honestly use this in the government to say that the Republicans just don't want a resolution and they don't want to solve anything in the government. And it's a whole different issue. But there is quite literally a trump card that has been put into the midst. Now, this trump card was given to John Thune to gain some leverage and prevent some issues of a government shutdown. While usually federal employees would just not work due to this no payment period, President Trump has suggested mass firings. He has just suggested remove them. They're not essential anyways. Just remove them. This by itself puts pressure on Democrats to push this bill to prevent this. They obviously do not want people to be fired from the federal government. They need the money. And Trump is just saying remove them. If they're not going to sign with us, then we just won't give them anything. We'll make it worse for them. And so he's just going to end up firing a bunch of people from the federal government. Now, Trump has also showed his acceptance with shutting it down unless you get everything. This is basically just means that he's completely fine with the government being shut down for a while if they don't sign our way. Now, this is a very decisive and important move, but it also helps solve a potential shutdown for a few reasons. This will basically give Trump the power to say, if you don't vote our way, then we don't give you what you want, and we make it worse for you. Because now they're not only getting nothing for what they want out of this deal, and the government's just shut down, but now they're losing more money because of the federal positions being removed. So this just makes it worse for them. And it kind of pushes them to make a quick deal or make a deal that works in favor of the Republicans. Now, this, in a sense, removes Senate Leader John Thune's ability to side with Democrats, which is good for him because now he doesn't even have that option to be removed. But it also leverages the power of Democrats to side with Republicans to prevent trouble. Now, to close this off, realistically, this will not affect the people as much as it will have an impact on government. But this is still a very important issue nonetheless. The previous bill in place ends next Tuesday at midnight, so we'll look out to see what happens. Now, we're waiting till Monday so they get back in office, but once they get back in office, they're going to be worried about this issue because it happens a day after. It's not something they can wait on. So we'll be able to see kind of what happens on Monday, and then on Tuesday, we will see what actually happens once it shuts down. Obviously, it's going to be at midnight, so we'll probably see more around Wednesday, and we'll be able to see a lot of how they decide, what's going to happen, if it's chaos in the morning, and if they're just going to shut down. We're hoping it doesn't, but you might see government shut down. Don't be confused when you see in the news that we're stuck on a random bill and we don't know what's happening, because realistically, in a sense, we do. So that is going to be it for episode 3, part 1 of the Right Angle Podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next part.